you've done super well. Sarah is your ride or die.
Yes.
Sarah has no question. If you came in with a shovel and you just said, listen, I need you outside 5 minutes. I need you to dress up in a plastic bag, leave all of your electronics here. We have something to do. She would do that, right?
Not only that, but she would show me how to use a shovel.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week, we take a look back in time, decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's Shat the Movies on YouTube. There we play video games, we host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
Gene, I'm excited. We love films that are action-packed, that have espionage, that have chase scenes, that have spying, cool tech, and a hell of a lot of love. And that's why I was very excited. One of our listeners, Josh, wrote in and said, please review the 1987 political action romantic comedy, No Way Out.
There's a comedy element to this movie?
Well, there's no romance is like a limited field. Usually romantic comedy. It's a loving movie about two people finding each other.
Well, Josh writes in and says, hi, Shat team. I'm an East Coast transplant in the Midwest. I stumbled upon your podcast randomly because I had no clue what was going on in Westworld. For a long time, I've wanted to commission a movie that meant something very personal to me, whether it was a film I watched over and over as a kid or a film on repeat in college, no matter what day or night it was. I quickly learned I was late to the game. Being an idiot, despite the fact I've listened to all your podcasts, I still search your webpage with an extreme amount of excitement just to be let down because your team covered all the films I loved growing up. Goonies, License to Drive, Top Gun, Dundee, War Games, etc. Despite this fact, long-winded, I miss my friends from growing up, and your team has allowed me to reminisce, smile, and bring me back to my roots because we argued over the same dumb stuff you do. Getting to my point, I'm not even that much of a Kevin Costner fan, but being a DC kid, I'd love to hear your take on a very underrated film from the 1980s, No Way Out. As an aside, I haven't laughed as hard as I do hearing your team argue. I think in today's world, we could all take a page from the Shat book and just having a good time and agreeing it's okay to disagree. And that comes from Commissioner Josh. Well, Josh, as you know, No Way Out is a 1987 neo-noir political action thriller film starring Kevin Costner, Gene Hackman, Will Patton, and Sean Young. Howard Duff, George Zunza, David Bernard, Fred Thompson, and Iman appear in supporting roles. The film is based on the 1946 novel The Big Clock by Kenneth Fearing, previously filmed as The Big Clock in 1948, and Police Python 357 in 1976. No Way Out debuted at number 2 at the U.S. box office after Stakeout with $4.3 million. The film's budget was an estimated $15 million, and its total U.S. gross was a whopping $35.5 million. Roger Ebert, who famously hated Police Academy, gave No Way Out 4 out of 4 stars, calling it truly labyrinthine and ingenious. This movie came out much more in your era of film watching. I was just a wee baby. What are your memories of No Way Out?
I can remember I took this out as a Blockbuster employee. You had free rentals. So I can remember seeing this. It did not have a full section on the new release wall. It had like one of the shelves. And it looked interesting. I mean, you got Kevin Costner. There's a little seduction. He's in his uniform. And it fit right into the genre that I liked. I like that political thriller, all the Tom Clancy movies. You got two big stars. You got a great plot. There's lots of tension. There's a whole Pentagon search scene climax. And I fondly remember this movie. I like Joshua. I thought this was a great movie. My brother-in-law was talking about it 2 weeks ago, and I said, yeah, I remember that thing was great. Upon this rewatch, actually going back, Gene, like you say, it's important, fresh eyes. Don't let your memory impact it. I have more questions than I did previously, and I wonder if it still gives me that sense of like excitement.
You were like, it was funny, it was sexy.
The meet cute was wonderful. The date scenes, the montage was great.
Well, Big D, we've done a lot of Kevin Costner on this podcast, but I didn't realize that I really caught on to the second movement of Kevin Costner's career. So in my childhood, he was everywhere. Robin Hood, Dances with Wolves, Bull Durham, Field of Dreams. And for that reason, I thought I had seen all of his major movies. But Shat the Movies has revealed huge holes in my Kevin Costner awareness, the earlier era of Costner. First, there was Silverado. Now it's No Way Out. I had no idea this movie existed, but I really enjoyed watching Kevin Costner run around in his hot little Navy uniform. It did things for me.
I agree. I found myself in awe. He's got an average body, but he's an attractive guy. He's charismatic. You can see why he became the big star he is. And I think this early Costner, the Bull Durham, the Field of Dreams, Dance with Wolves, this is apex Costner.
Hit that trailer.
They needed a hero.
I understand he has a background in intelligence.
Has 2 tours with naval intelligence.
Get him here.
He liked excitement.
Take us somewhere.
He wanted her. Their passion upset the balance of power.
What's all this top secret business I've been hearing about over the Pentagon?
You know I work for Bryce?
Then that makes 2 of us.
This one can do things for me like no other woman I've ever met.
Behind the cover-up.
Try and understand.
The power.
The important thing is to abort an investigation before it ever gets to you.
You haven't told me everything.
Who's running this thing at the Pentagon?
The new boy, Farrell.
So we can take the fall in case anything goes wrong.
The loyalty.
I love you. I promise I'll work everything out.
How did you actually meet the Secretary of Defense?
I need a car. It's an emergency.
These people have already tried to kill one person who knew.
Bring this one down. No, you can't take that.
Behind the deceit.
If it were your intention to bring down David Bryce, then I'd have no choice but to make sure that you didn't get away with it.
They mean to kill me, Sam.
Because of the truth, there's no way out. Kevin Costner, Gene Hackman, Sean Young, Will Patton, No Way Out.
Commander Tom Farrell of the Office of Naval Intelligence is invited to an inaugural ball by his college buddy Scott Pritchard, who introduces him to his boss, Secretary of Defense David Bryce. Farrell also meets Susan Atwill, and they begin an affair just before Farrell ships out for the Philippines. After Farrell risks his life to save a shipmate at sea, Bryce hires him to act as his eyes and ears within the CIA. Returning to Washington, D.C., Farrell reunites with his old landlord and his friend, Sam Hesselman, who works in the Pentagon's new computer center.
This movie takes its sweet-ass time getting to the point of that supposed political action thriller film. They spend, no joke, 45 minutes playing this out like a traditional boy meets girl. The protagonists, they're missing something in their lives, whether it's happiness or love. We have a meet cute at the ball, at the inaugural ball where the two protagonists meet. And there's a personality clash, like, you're impressed by me. And then the two characters spend more time with each other and they enter the honeymoon stage and it kicks in. But then there's obstacles between the characters and it eventually catches up with them and causes a problem in their relationship, like finding out your second fiddle. Then the characters overcome these obstacles in the journey. Then bam, Susan's fucking murdered. Okay. None of this is essential to the story of political espionage. They waste too much time on the plot in the relationship to get to know Tom and Susan. Oh, they like each other. Give me a simple dating montage. You could have accomplished this in about, let's say, 8 minutes.
Dear listeners, the setup that we have here is not boy meets girl. A Navy officer and an escort meet at an inauguration. Totally normal. Happens all the time. Then they fuck in a limo before going to her friend's house where they kick her friend out for reasons unknown and bang there. This escort, by the way, happens to be completely fucking bonkers. You know the type I'm talking about. She's a good lay, but she's a little out there. And the naval officer goes off, saves a man at sea, and comes back to her. What part of this, Big D, is a traditional romance?
Okay, so Gene, I'm going to give you a possible another scenario of a film. Let's say, how about a corporate raider?
Okay.
A corporate raider goes into LA, he's got some meetings, he's going to take over a company, burn it to the ground. He then hires a prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
Here, Tom didn't hire a prostitute. She just happened to be an escort. He liked her. Why is Pretty Woman a romantic comedy?
But these are some pretty extreme circumstances here. They're at an inauguration. He's a naval officer. She is the escort to the Secretary of Defense.
All that's unknown at this time.
It's unknown, but it's facts. It's relevant. It's not a normal romance. They weren't having coffee. They didn't go to the same church.
Well, Gene, it eventually ends up in love. So there was some romance. He saw something in her. And they have some playful banter. They have some sex in the back of a limo with a creepy limo driver, which I thought was the guy from Die Hard. He's watching. They're into it. It seems like fun. It's the beginning. It's that honeymoon phase, Gene.
You thought this driver was Argyle?
A grown-up Argyle.
The bachelor party rears its ugly head again.
He's peeping. He's watching. And you hint there that she's a bit off. She is off. She is a weird chick. Besides the romantic component of this, we're going to find out Scott and Tom's backstory, their friendship. They were in college. Scott's going to go through and introduce him to people. He's going to try to help his career. I think it's pointless. It delays us even further from getting to the end. They don't even seem to like each other. They just were classmates beyond that. There was no talking about their old times or about what they really liked or some challenge or tough situation that bonded them together. And I think that Tom could have just been a guest at the party. He shows up. He could have been there. He's a naval officer. He's in Washington. He meets Susan. They get into the limo. They have sexy time. Skip this awkward interaction with Bryce. He gets the job because of his experience and his bravery in that storm rescue. He's on the cover of the paper. That being said, Scott is a weirdo. He is strange. But everybody needs a Scott in their life. And not just because he's a fashionable homosexual, but because he has blind devotion like Sarah. He admires Bryce in possibly a creepy way. They never make it clear whether or not he's attracted to him or he just admires him. But he worships this man. I think it's more than sexual. He's a genius. The normal rules don't apply to him. He's the most extraordinary person I've met. If it came to it, I'd lay down my life for him. Tom kind of looks at him like you're fucking crazy. Everybody needs that kind of person. I'm jealous that you have Sarah. Bryce has Scott, and I have no one. Would you help me, Gene?
I'd like to say that I'm the kind of person that would help with no questions asked, but it's not because of my blind devotion or loyalty. It's because I just really like plans. So you give me a plan and I can just follow it, no matter what that plan is. Evil plans, good plans, doesn't matter.
So if I told you, hey, Gene, next week, I'm thinking that I might need you to dispose of something, leave your phone at home. It'll be bloody. Keep it secret. Just meet me out in the woods or out in the desert. It's Arizona. You bury people in the desert.
Yeah, I feel like that's something the King Bee does on the regular. Hey, let me borrow $3,000. No questions asked. Okay.
Well, if he wanted you to show up with the $3,000 in a suitcase to a drop-off point,
that just makes it more fun. Yeah.
But there's another question here that we get another friendship question. If I were to show up at your house, knock on the door and say, hey, Gene, listen, I need your bed. Here's my keys. Leave. And then immediately before I even close the door, I get naked and start having sex in your house. Is that okay for a friend to ask?
Yeah, I mean, for your safety, I would recommend, we've got the very nice Shat Shack in which I'm recording right now. It's got chairs, it's got soundproofing, it's got air conditioning, lights, you've got webcams. You can do all kinds of things in here. I would really recommend this room. It's even got its own beer fridge. This is the place to be. There are dogs in the house, but as long as you agreed to leave the dogs in their crates, I think Sarah and I would put some shoes on, go over to the Yucca tap room and wait for the whole thing to blow over.
Because Nina's a great friend. Nina leaves.
Oh, the best.
She doesn't care. They're obviously going to soil her sheets.
Yes.
Do you replace someone's sheets if you have sex on them, or can you wash them?
I think the courtesy would be to buy some new ones. Like if you're 21, right, then you're just washing them. But at our age, when you're 50,
oh, you son of a bitch,
you buy people new sheets, Big D.
Yeah.
You buy people new sheets. And Josh, you mentioned DC as the backdrop for this movie and how that kind of tugged at your heartstrings. I'm going to reveal here how little I know about DC. I know a couple things. I know where to get decent food. I know a lot about the monuments, and I know to go to those monuments at night. That is the time to go see everything in DC. Don't see in the daytime. It's too hot. It's too crowded. And the monuments by night, all lit up, all beautiful. It's really the time to do it. What I do not know a lot about is the Pentagon, because despite paying a lot of attention during civics lessons, understanding that the Constitution establishes protections from the government and how a bill becomes a law, and being a bit of a political junkie, I just had no idea what goes on in the Pentagon. In my head, Big D, it's like this giant war room where all the military officers run the operations from around the world. Like it's just a bunch of computers and guys standing over maps of stuff. No Way Out might be the first and only movie I've seen that depicts the interior and personnel of the Pentagon. I didn't realize it's military personnel working for the Department of Defense, loads of offices, thousands of civilians, 17 miles of walkways in there. Like this thing is fucking huge. And here's the saddest part. You know, the middle of the Pentagon, which is also a Pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was like the core of operations. Like it was like a bunkered command center with like wall-to-wall digital screens where they were launching like intercontinental ballistic missiles. Turns out that's a courtyard.
Yeah.
And in that courtyard, there is a now defunct hot dog stand. That's all that's there.
No, but you forget about the basketball court. It's a small city. It really
Yeah.
is. It's gigantic, but there's no video cameras in any of the hallways. I'm surprised about that. They got some great tech, no security. But I think if this was going to be real, it would be a little more boring. You said 17 miles of hallway.
Yeah.
You saw that little scooter. There's one point where you get like that Austin Powers motorized car that's going down the hallway. From what I understand, the stories I've heard from people who I served with who were at the Pentagon, it is a lot of walking. Can you imagine this movie if they were actually, okay, I got to go see this person in their office. And it's like 7-10 minute walk. He gets there. People would get lost. This whole idea that you're going to search the Pentagon, that is not a chance that any of that would ever happen.
Did you know that the Russians targeted, it's rumored that the Russians targeted that hot dog stand in the middle of the courtyard? They thought it was like some super secret operation. So basically, I'm Russian intelligence.
What is this, like Spies Like Us?
Yeah,
where it's a movie
exactly.
theater where like if you like pick up the ketchup bottle, it opens up some secret elevator down into the bottom? No, I think the Russians were trying to break our spirit by taking away our tasty treats.
Don't touch my glizzies, Boris. Atwell and Farrell's affair continues even after she reveals she is also Bryce's mistress. Suspicious that Atwell has another lover, an enraged Bryce accidentally pushes her over an upstairs railing to her death. Pritchard removes all evidence of Bryce from Atwell's apartment and discovers an indiscernible negative of a photograph she took of Farrell. Pritchard suggests that Atwell's other lover could be conflated with a KGB agent codenamed Yuri, who could be implicated in her death and killed by Pritchard's operatives, clearing Bryce from suspicion. Army CID officers search Atwell's apartment, and Pritchard plants the photo negative among the evidence, which Hesselman attempts to have enhanced by computer.
So Sean Young, she plays this. She's the hottest commodity, it looks like, in Washington. Everybody wants her. People see her. They can't take their eyes off of her. And I mean, she looks good. I don't want to judge the woman. She's in shape. You're looking at me like,
Does she?
No, she doesn't. Okay, I'm being nice. I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying not to be judgmental. But here's what I'll say. She has like this weird, mysterious characteristic about her that adds to her allure. If you think back to some of her stuff like Blade Runner or Dune, she's a bit off and odd. In Stripes, she seemed more normal. But I don't know. They don't do her any justice in this film. What was the stylist going for? Her character's wardrobe and hairstyle, it looks like the soccer mom from that SNL skit with the mom jeans, where her hair is like cropped a little too short, showing she's hitting an age where she just doesn't care anymore to try to be sexy. That lingerie she's wearing, it borders on mom. It's a bit weird. And she's batshit crazy, which is the trifecta that you stay away from her. You hint at it, Gene, that she's off. And I think that's Sean Young. I don't know if you're old enough to remember this. Before Batman Returns came out, it was the big casting news. Who's going to be Catwoman? She wanted it so bad. She went on late night TV in a cat suit, in a bid. She did her whole interview as Catwoman, trying to be the sexy, perfect. And it's cringeworthy, but it was her desperate attempt to get it. And I think that craziness we're touching on in the character is actually more Sean Young than the character herself.
I could almost imagine that she was the front runner for Catwoman. The studio saw that and went, "Oh,
It's painful if you go back and watch."
Yeah, that hurts. But I agree. Sean Young looks whack in this movie. And what makes this unforgivable is exactly what you just mentioned, Big D. The team at No Way Out already had a template for how to make her look great. A lot of times the studio's got to sit there and go, okay, what are we going to do? What exciting look are we going to give this star to make her the talk of the town, to get her in the magazines, to say, oh, wow, like look at her in this movie. All the movies you mentioned had already been released, right? So just take her look from Blade Runner or Stripes or Dune, anything, literally borrow that look, and she would look fantastic. Instead, they went with whatever the hell was going on here. Although I did sort of appreciate that sleeveless sweater, the outfit she's wearing when she takes the photo. I don't know what happened to that sweater in the US style lexicon, but it needs to come back. And you're right that it is peculiar that these men of power, a naval officer and the Secretary of Defense, are like fighting over this woman, or at least having a cold war over her. Because on its face, Tom, his relationship with Susan, it seems pretty simpy. He only gets to have her when Bryce doesn't want her. This is Kevin Costner saying that Gene Hackman gets to have the girl. He's in love with her, but Bryce just sees her as a side chick. And as he says in the movie, like, he can't go through the front door the way he wants. He has to go out the back door. I'm thinking this is just a matter of mentality. Like, Tom's got to look at the situation in a different way. If you flip it around, right, it's all a matter of perception. He is banging his boss's mistress. Like, think of what a power move that is. You are getting for free what another dude pays for. It's like if your girlfriend is on OnlyFans, and I can't believe OnlyFans just came up twice in consecutive episodes, but that's really what it is. People are like, well, how could you have your girlfriend get naked on the internet? Dude, other dudes are paying to see my girlfriend naked on the internet. And you also know something the other guy doesn't know. You know you're fucking his chick, but he doesn't know. It's like she's cheating on him with you. You never have to take her out on dates. You never have to buy her gifts because Gene Hackman's doing all that. He's doing all the work, and you get all the benefits. It's great.
You don't have to take her on dates? What do you think? That boat in the Chesapeake Bay rented itself, Gene?
He chose to do that. And by the way, they used whose credit card? Hers.
Okay.
They used her credit card. He didn't have to pay for that.
Well, I think he paid cash for that boat.
I think he tipped the bellboy. That was about it. And the boat guy. They're a very progressive couple.
But it's a simple answer, Gene. A guy like Tom, Navy officer, he's a man of action. Does he wait for the rescue team tied off? No, he gets out there. He saves that sailor. I think he's more upset at being a pussy. He has to sneak around and go out the back door. That's the biggest insult to him. It's not the fact that Bryce is banging his side piece or his girl. He says, well, when I leave, it'll be through the front door. You know, he's got to be the alpha male, and it explains why. He later on, when he goes out, he stands there and stares at him. It's almost like he wants to get caught. He's the alpha dog. And it brings me to one thing, Gene. You never cheat down. This is what I heard. You always cheat with somebody of equal level or status because that person is less likely to out you. A CEO should not cheat with a secretary. A CEO cheats with another CEO. Bryce could have picked somebody more stable and better, a career officer, somebody in the Pentagon. He's risking everything being with this nut job.
Yeah, he needs Demi Moore from JAG. Like that's what he needs to be doing. Big D, you're right. Those are wise words of wisdom. Always cheat up. Unfortunately, most guys cheat down because they're not looking for someone more virtuous or accomplished or beautiful or sane than their wife. They've already got their wife. They chose her for all of those reasons, right? They're looking for sluts. And Gene Hackman even alludes to it, right? The things she does. That's why he keeps her around. It's not because she's, you know, some fantastic piece. And I couldn't believe that Kevin Costner walks out there and stands right in front of him because my worry would be that if I was sleeping with this woman and I really cared about her, that guy's going to go in there and beat the shit out of her. That would be my big worry. It's like, you don't want to be out there. He's endangering her. And in hindsight, it makes sense when we get the big reveal at the end of the movie that he's trying to start shit. He doesn't really worry about the implications there, but he's kind of at fault in some of this.
Yeah, and Bryce also, I think he's a bit kinky. They only give us hints at it. He likes putting her in a spot where the wife will see her, where she's out in public to watch her.
Yes.
So the things that Bryce does makes a little bit sense, that he's turned on by the danger of it being caught. That's probably why he does it. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's into some kinky shit. I wish they'd hinted about that.
I watched about half of this movie under the impression that Bryce recognized Tom when he saw him in the street. The two men, for those who haven't seen this movie in a while, they're standing at most 20 yards from each other. It is nighttime, yes, and he's, in the shadows or whatever, but like, how many people do you know shaped like Kevin Costner? I could spot Kevin Costner's silhouette in a lineup any day, and we, the viewers, are seeing the scene from over Bryce's shoulder. It's reasonable to believe we had the same vantage point as Gene Hackman does in this scene. So I'm watching the movie. I think Bryce knows it was Tom who spent the weekend with Atwell because he's standing right fucking there. I can't believe he didn't recognize it.
No, forget about the fact of recognizing Kevin Costner. If they work in the same office,
yeah,
you see that person every day. If I put one of your employees in the shadow 20 feet away, even if you weren't like, hey, Susan, is that you? What are you doing standing there? You would wonder, is this person coming to rob me? Is this person coming to attack me? He is the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
He should have security. He should have people with him. Instead, he's driving that like 87 Oldsmobile by himself.
Maybe he just didn't recognize him because he wasn't in uniform.
Yeah, that threw him off.
He's like, couldn't be. Tom only wears his Navy uniform.
Or maybe he was turned on and his erection and all the endorphins and testosterone were going. He couldn't see beyond, is she up there with somebody? I mean, the dude came out of her courtyard. He should have been up there. But
yeah. I mean, realistically, if you're the Secretary of Defense, you see that guy standing there, you turn around and get back in your car. That's the move. You don't go into the apartment.
No, he could have been a KGB agent or somebody out there to kidnap him. That should have been his big fear. And again,
private investigator.
Yeah, exactly. He comes out and serves him. I'm your wife's PI. I've been following you for the last 6 months. It could have been anything because people know him. If the Secretary of Defense was out there, people are like, hey, how come he keeps going up into that house alone? Isn't that his 87 Oldsmobile Cutlass sitting out there?
God, could you imagine this murder scene, but Gene Hackman's wearing a disguise the whole time?
Like a mustache and some glasses. That'd be great. No, everybody seems to know he comes in and out. He doesn't sneak in the back door. He goes right in the front door. I mean, they're picking her up in a limo. Pritchard's there. People around have to know what's going on. But we get inside, Gene, and we're going to get to where it finally turns from, the romance is over, unfortunately. There's going to be a crime. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a law enforcement officer. But I watched a lot of YouTube videos with the Legal Eagle and Tom Law. So I think I'm qualified as a podcaster here, a legally bound and bonded podcaster.
Yeah.
In my YouTube legal advice, I don't think that Bryce, what he does, would legally be considered murder or even manslaughter. So I did a little research. I went and found that in the District of Columbia, manslaughter or voluntary manslaughter, you need an individual to commit a voluntary manslaughter when the person intends to kill the other human without malice aforethought. In other words, it wasn't planned out. The intent to kill is created in a sudden and extraordinary angry moment, heat of the moment. I think I can make an argument that what happens there is nothing more than an unfortunate accident. I think maybe involuntary manslaughter, same as if you crash your car. Susan, she has a poorly designed and constructed railing that's supposed to look fashionable. It looked a little bit too low to be OSHA compliance. Bryce, yes, he's aggressive. He's screaming at her, "Who are you with? Who are you with?" He doesn't shove her off. This isn't like a fugitive case where he beat her to death with his arm. This was just an accident and then the slow motion fall. He probably could have gotten off with a decent DC lawyer with nothing more than a slap on the wrist.
First of all, this is why everyone should just have one-story homes. But second, in the synopsis, we said that he pushed her over the railing. Really, when you watch the slow motion of this scene, he slaps her. Apparently, he slaps her so hard that her ass goes like 2 feet up in the air and then over the railing. And really, like you suggested, Big D, is more her furniture that was at fault, because like at this time in American home decor, using marble and glass was like very, very in. I think now that we've gotten more into, wood and other materials, I think it's a little bit safer. I don't think Bryce was actually worried about a murder conviction, all this. Like, I think when he killed her or realized that she had died as a result of his actions, I think he was more worried about like his reputation, his marriage, his career. You see that he's showing some remorse in this scene right in front of Pritchard. He's talking to him. He said, I didn't need you to fix this. I just needed somebody to talk to about it. And as I got further into the movie, especially seeing kind of how it ends when Bryce tries to flip this around on Pritchard, I suddenly started asking, like, was he really considering turning himself in? Or did he know that Pritchard was so loyal that even presenting the problem to him, Pritchard would present his own solutions to it that wouldn't be Bryce's responsibility? It was a real twist for me.
Yeah, I think it would have been logical. I think things like House of Cards with Kevin Spacey, because a similar thing happens where you have to get rid of somebody who's a witness. And Frank Underwood was more concerned about the overall destruction of his life. My career is over. I've lost my family. I'm nothing. The power that these men really love having will be gone. They'll become nothing. You go from a power player ordering breakfast and verbally sparring with other people within the political apparatus. But I got to take him at his word. He's emotional. Bryce is a bit weak, and he's going to give it up right away. He doesn't even think about trying to come up with a cover story. So I got to take him at his word because he's belly aching. I murdered her. I fucked up. Never once does he even just say, my career is over. My life is over. My wife and kids are gone. I honestly think he believes he murdered her.
Now, Pritchard, on the other hand, like, he's willing to get his hands dirty. He's channeling like dark Phil Hartman energy here. And gay listeners, what I'm about to say isn't meant to stereotype. It is restricted to a single character, Scott Pritchard, and his decisions in this film. He happens to be a homosexual, which makes these decisions a bit more endearing. But Big D, we got to talk about Pritchard's cleanup of the crime, because in most movies, you've got this high stakes killing in a area like DC with a person as high profile as the Secretary of Defense. You're going to have professionals dealing with this, right? The crew's going to show up to erase that homicide, and it's going to be like guys in hazmat suits, head to toe black with black latex gloves and booties on their feet, maybe turtlenecks if they're really pros. Scott isn't having any of that. Scott Pritchard shows up at Atwell's house to remove evidence in a very smart blue sweater, layered over a business casual shirt with a button-down collar. And I'm convinced that when he showed up, he wasn't just cleaning to remove evidence, because he's picking up books, he's like rearranging stuff, he's dusting, and he had ideas on how to improve Susan's living space. Like, this was a very judgmental cleaning of her home.
Yeah, I think he's straightening pictures. He's questioning her layout. And it's kind of a superficial half-ass wiping down. It seems more like he's just like kind of peeping around. But imagine, Gene, now the body's found. Police come, they canvass the area, and they say, "I saw somebody go in there." If you said, "Hey, I saw a guy in a hazmat suit," you look pretty guilty, But if you said, "I saw a guy who looked very put together," he looked quite fashionable.
But I feel like there are things that I would always want to avoid leaving at the scene of a crime, like just from watching enough crime dramas, right? Like, I'm never going to put my saliva on anything. Definitely going to keep my hair. That's going to be probably the biggest problem for me, is hair. Just keeping all my hair in check. And then the other one is fibers. I think a sweater, there's so much fiber there. You're going to leave one little blue strand behind.
Yes, and he's wearing multi-layers. He's got multiple fibers. And his shit isn't cheap. It's probably expensive. Like, it'll be like, we found a thread from a goat herd sweater, which is only sold at this one store in like Pakistan. He'll get caught. But Pritchard, yes, he's homosexual, but he seems like the type of guy who has an outfit for every occasion. Like, this is, we're going to go negotiate with the CIA. This is, we're going to go walk the dog. We're going to go shopping. He probably has a cleaning scene outfit that he puts up there where he's going to commit crime. I mean, he had like the OJ Isotona gloves. These weren't like rubber gloves. These were like nice leather, supple gloves. If he's going to commit a crime, he wants to look spiffy. He wants to look good. But Gene, again, they're smart. Why leave the body there? It's much harder to prove a crime when there's no body. Pick her up, stick her in the trunk. She's gone. It's just another girl missing in Washington, D.C. There was the case a couple years ago where someone who was allegedly having an affair with a politician disappeared. Remove the evidence.
Oh man, I don't know. See, that would be my biggest worry if I were to kill somebody other than the fact that I killed somebody, is the body. I would not be good at disposing of bodies. Seems like a really hard thing to do, and it leaves a trail of evidence with you.
Today, yes. Today, everything, the roads are monitored, tag readers, everybody's got a door cam, your e-pass. Everything would get you caught. Your cell phone. Back in that day, dude, you could get rid of 5 bodies and nobody would see. Worst case, you roll her up in a rug.
What?
Somebody sees you take her out. What are you going to do? Where's the camera? Where you have no evidence.
Where are you going to put the body?
It's Washington, D.C. They got to have some swamp or marshland somewhere. Dump her in the Potomac. I don't know. Just anywhere but that apartment. Leave her in one of the rundown areas of Washington. Make it look like she was attacked. There was no blood, even though I assume the glass table cut her. Make it a mystery. Make it harder to figure out who it was, what happened. Just muddy the waters.
Well, if you're out there and you've got better ideas on how to make Susan Atwell disappear, write in at host@shatpod.com. I'd love to hear, especially if you're an expert on the matter. Realizing that Bryce killed Atwell and Pritchard is covering up the crime, Farrell assists the bogus investigation. He and Pritchard question Atwell's friend Nina, who pretends not to recognize Farrell, but reveals that she knew Atwell was seeing Bryce. Pritchard sends 2 assassins to eliminate her, but Farrell intervenes and warns Nina. Farrell investigates a jewel box from Morocco that Bryce gave Atwell and convinces Hesselman to delay the photo enhancement by confiding to him that he is the person in the photo.
I don't even think I got to say spoiler alert. This film came out in 1987. If you're listening to this podcast, I don't think you're worried about finding out the big twist reveal at the end. But Tom is the Russian spy. He is Yuri. But with hindsight, I think it's a problem for me watching the film because handlers, when they're finding people to flip, they look for leverage points that they can do people. It's either like sex or money.
Piss tapes.
Yes, exactly. They're going to blackmail someone into working for them. They use that as a form of coercion. The Secretary of Defense, he compromised himself. Tom would just have to relay the message to his painting landlord. Hey, listen, fucking call the DC police or call the KGB to go over there and confront him. He's actually committed a crime. It's perfect. He would fucking turn in a second. All you have to do is make that connection. This works. It's perfect. I'm going to expose your infidelity to your wife. You're going to be implicated in Susan's death. I need you to work with me. He's screwed. He would do it. You don't need Tom to go through this whole shenanigans. He's done it for you.
Yeah, this movie shouldn't be called No Way Out. It should be called All the Ways Out in the World. Because on one hand, I could see maybe you're making the counter argument that Tom fell in love with Atwell. And so he's abandoned his loyalty to the KGB. He doesn't care about that anymore. But in this case, his emotional response to Atwell's death, we see him going to the bathroom. He falls on the floor. He's crushed by this thing. He's angry, right? Channel that into the KGB's interests. It works. It's a win-win, right? He absolutely should have torpedoed Bryce instead of playing along with his sham investigation. I mean, yes, it would have made for a shorter and less interesting movie, but the solution is right fucking there.
It's right there. He's pinned. He's in the office, in the Pentagon. He knows he's done. All you have to do is tell Pritchard to leave and you have a conversation with him. Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
I know you did it. I saw you there. I have evidence. I want you to come with me. You're going to talk to someone else. Just squash this investigation and let's go have a talk with someone. You'd have him by the balls. But when I thought about this movie and whenever anybody talks about it, you remember one thing about No Way Out. It is that great scanner that is going to scan the back of the Polaroid, that is going to find some emulsion that's left. They're going to scan it. They put it up on the computer and they purposely say, hey, we're going to put it on this computer display right in the middle of the investigation so everybody can watch it.
It's going to work pixel by pixel.
If it doesn't work the way we want it to, we will adjust the program. So who knows that's going to come out accurate? I mean, they initially say that it looks like a baboon's ass at night or something like that. But you've got this trope here. It's called the ticking time bomb or the ticking clock, where it increases the stakes and tension. We now have this computer program and scanning. So it ratchets it up. You know, Tom is now, he's got no way out, Gene. No way out. He is stuck in there. And as the audience, you become more invested in it. I don't know why they didn't do this early on. I complained about the romance, right? Have the murder happen quick. This thing is now going to take days. It could take days. You stretch it out to where Tom is now, when he's chasing people around through the subways, when he's running around investigating, when he's meeting Nina, all that stuff is clicking. If you had like, say, an hour and a half of this movie on the clock, I think it would have been much better. I don't need to see the dating weekend, the extended conversations with bellhops. Yes, later on it comes back why he remembers him, but we didn't need all that shit. Just, he likes her, he loves her, he fell in love with her. Get the clock started earlier.
Yeah, but if it wasn't for that extended weekend sailing date on Chesapeake Bay, we wouldn't have met the film's greatest character, 80s King B. And fucking look at this. I'm going to post it on Twitter. I'm going to post it on Instagram. I'm fairly certain King B has not seen this movie, but my God, this marina rental worker looks like the prototype for the King B style. He's got the fisherman's cap, the beard, the barrel chest. It is creepy how much these guys look alike. But Big D, getting back to the computer, someone on set had a real fucking hard on for computers. Computer is like a major character in this movie. And if you listen to our Hackers episode, you know that 1987, it's right around where Big D and I jumped into computer mania, right? In that like 5-year span from like 83 to 88. War games, weird science, they'd both come out a few years earlier. And movies in the late 80s just love featuring all the wonders of the computer age. And No Way Out took that to another level. Sam's computer, it's cleaning up photos. Same computer, tracking phone calls. It's analyzing stomach contents. We even get a fucking action scene with a printer racing to save the day. It's like assassins coming, like, print fast. Oh my God, we got to get David Bryce's name on paper. I half expected there to be a scene where Tom like uses the computer to have one last conversation with Atwell's computerized consciousness. And it's like, I love you, Tom. Thank God we didn't get that.
The tech, they stretch it a bit far. They show like some graphic.
A bit.
They show like the overlapping circles of her stomach content, like where the fish could be, like where they were. How do you know she didn't buy it at a supermarket? How do you know she didn't go to some other restaurant that just happens to get their fish from the Chesapeake Bay?
What's fascinating is Hesselman says that every terminal in that office is connected to that one computer. So there's other people trying to get like Department of Defense work done. Like, sorry, computer's booked up doing stomach contents right now.
This is like AOL Online where you take up that one thing. And also that when he tries to send or tries to query the other server, he says, oh, they're closed. What, is the server closed at 5 o'clock too? Is that how it worked back then?
That's right.
But Gene, they found DNA. They found semen in there. But they're more interested in the stomach contents, and it gives you that beautiful chart of the different types of fish and where those fish naturally live. And I go with it. It's fun.
Oh man, I thought the semen was part of the stomach contents.
No.
That's separate. That was just the regular autopsy.
Yeah, that was separate. And I mean, they narrow it down like blood type A negative. Who could it be? In the Pentagon, there would have been probably 3,000 people
at least.
This is the only spy thriller I ever remember where there's no spying. Nobody's actually spying on anyone. Are you telling me that Bryce, Secretary of Defense, he's never had Pritchard stake out her apartment and say, hey, just go sit there. Tell me who she's banging. Tell me what's going on. You tell me that his like security detail just lets him drive around. Gene Hackman later on goes in. He loves this role, Gene Hackman. He does it in like Enemy of the State, whether it's Crimson Tide. He's always that old surly, like political, like guy who's full of himself. He never used his assets to go out there and spy on her or spy on anybody. Kevin Costner, Tom could spy. What was the whole point of sleeping with Atwater? To get information about Bryce? You now work in his office. The CIA is handing you the reports. You don't need to go this long route to get them.
I thought he was just trying to nut.
Yeah, that's fine.
Credit card statements lead the CID to two witnesses who can identify Atwell's mystery lover. One of them spots Farrell at a distance, confirming to the investigators that Yuri is inside the Pentagon, and a room-by-room search begins. Farrell informs Hesselman of Bryce's guilt and the incriminating gift, and eludes the search by climbing into a ceiling vent. Concerned, Hesselman tells Pritchard of Farrell's suspicions and his relationship with Atwell, and Pritchard shoots Hesselman dead. Farrell reaches Bryce's office and confronts him, and Pritchard prepares to implicate Farrell as Yuri for Atwell's and Hesselman's deaths. But Bryce improvises a different story to buy Farrell's silence. Devastated and betrayed, Pritchard shoots himself, and Bryce tells the investigators that Pritchard was Yuri, concluding the search. once we find out that Yuri has been spotted in the Pentagon, I was very confused because Pritchard is very enthused. Like, he finds out witnesses spotted Yuri inside the Pentagon. He looks very excited, but he knows that Yuri isn't really the killer, if Yuri exists at all. You would think that Scott would be like really alarmed at this point, because one of two things is happening here. Either the witnesses are mistaken and they're going to point out an innocent man. That man presumably gets arrested. They start interrogating that person. And if the things don't match up, that could blow up Bryce's entire cover. Or the second scenario is that there really is a Russian mole in the building, which you were not expecting, and you are in serious danger. It would be a big deal. Like if I kept telling you, hey, Hashmir is breaking into my house and eating all the ice cream. And then Sarah one night tells me, hey, man, I just saw Hashmir in my house. Dude, Hashmir doesn't exist. He's a cover for my midnight snacking. I'd be very worried now.
God, but how much of a tool does this poor bellhop feel like? You drag this dude into the Pentagon dressed like a fucking, like, what was he dressed like?
Like a Minuteman.
Yes, he's dressed like a Minuteman, and he's walking around the Pentagon with all of these very serious people in their serious military uniforms. He looks like an idiot. And first of all, that fat bastard, the King Bee, like Philin, he couldn't have walked the 17 miles. There's absolutely no way. Why don't you just show him some photos?
Well, you can tell when they're like, hey, we're going to go to the mall entrance. You stand there, he's like, God damn.
Yeah, hell, he's like, we got to get something to eat. Can we stop? Is there a hot dog stand in here? How do you think you're going to identify him? He's like, it's that guy in the white suit. There's like 500 people in white suits.
Apparently, Kevin Costner's very easy to identify at 20 yards, unless you're Gene Hackman.
The overall sense that I get from the investigators is they're not that bright. They never ask the simple question. What do we have tying Yuri to this killing of Susan? Who is Susan? Why did Yuri kill her? What proof do we have? There's no investigator asks it. No one says, how do we know Yuri killed Susan? What's the connection? That's the simple question they should ask. And it makes them look stupid. Bryce, I think, would have been better off just letting Pritchard clean the apartment, ignore Susan's death, talked about that. Because there's no other evidence that Susan's scene, the scene of the crime, that ties it to anyone, let alone the character of Yuri. It doesn't make any sense, but they're all idiots. When Pritchard shoots the computer guy in his wheelchair in the Pentagon, you don't think somebody heard that? There's no cameras. Nobody goes in, oh, Yuri did it. Is that all it takes? Like somebody steals a lunch out of the break room. Oh, it's Yuri. It's probably a running joke in the Pentagon that anything that happens, it's Yuri.
And in a lot of movies, you've got detectives that are coming from outside of the organization, right? So they don't know the players. They don't know how things work. You can insulate the guilty from the detectives by putting layers of bureaucracy and shit between them, or just plain ignorance. In this case, these cops are specific to the Pentagon. Like, they are likely well aware that most people in the building consider this Yuri thing to be a rumor. So they should be a bit skeptical. And they know all the players in the building. They know their normal habits. They should be able to see very quickly that some people are acting very suspicious, like shutting doors in their face or telling them to get out. They are all out to lunch and not good at their jobs.
I think Bryce actually makes himself more likely to get caught by tying Yuri to this girl.
Yes.
They're going to say, why was Yuri after this girl? Then they start going back and asking Nina, asking neighbors. That's going to get Bryce caught and implicated. Instead of just some random girl who fell off of her glass, stylish 80s balcony through the table, now you have it tied to the Department of Defense, to the Secretary of the Defense. This is making you more likely to be caught.
Well, Farrell sends the printout to the director of the CIA, who is Bryce's political rival, and he leaves as the finished photograph reveals him as Atwell's lover. Sitting at Atwell's grave, Farrell is picked up by a pair of operatives and interrogated at the house. He is confronted by his landlord, revealed to be his handler. They are all Russian agents, and Farrell actually is Yuri. Having fulfilled his mission to seduce Bryce's mistress to gather intelligence, Farrell is warned to return to the Soviet Union, but he refuses, revealing that he genuinely loved Susan Atwell and is finished being a spy.
So I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to give us that big twist ending. From what I understand, the original film does a better job of it, that they kind of hide it and it makes things that have happened a little more different upon review. But I know they're trying to make us sympathize with Costner. He's this hero. He's this American. We're going to think he's unjustly being pursued by the Russians as a Russian spy, that Yuri doesn't even exist. And in the end, oh, wow, that opening interrogation, that was Costner with his handlers. He's at a safe house, It doesn't make any sense to me. It just fell completely flat, because at no point did I get that, oh shit, like The Usual Suspects, where you're seeing all of the words in the coffee mug, the things around them, and you go back and they replay the scenes. And with this new information, you view them different. There's no The Sixth Sense, where I'm the one who's dead. And every time they're talking, the kid with him, that there's no one else there. Or Primal Fear at the end, where Ed Norton is actually okay, pretending to be disabled. Or Arrival, that you're watching what's already happened. The twist ending for me, it didn't pay off, because I didn't rethink anything. I always thought Tom is innocent of murder. Either he loved her, nothing changed. He's trying to get away with murder.
But it changes everything about his behaviors during the movie. Like, that's what the twist is about. It's explaining a bunch of little things that he did that seemed like flaws, right? When he's rushing to warn Nina, why does he do it in the way that he does? When he makes that phone call, we assume that he was calling somebody else. He was calling his handler. It explains why Tom made the wrong choice over and over again. And it makes him the worst person in this movie. Yes, he didn't kill anybody, but he basically deceived everyone, right? The one thing I would change to make this movie stronger, though, is actually to take out that love aspect. Make Tom not actually love Atwell. Go all the way, right? Don't just dip one foot in. If he was just a total piece of shit, it would have been an even better twist. You see Kevin Costner just flip like that. That would have been something.
And I would have been okay. So then we see all of his, like, on the floor in the bathroom, acting emotional. All that was fake. That was calculated.
He was actually just constipated.
Okay, that I'd accept. I want to challenge you with this. Let's just say that Tom is not Yuri. How would he have reacted different in any of these situations? He wouldn't have rushed to Nina to try to stop her from admitting that they were together, because he thinks he's going to go down for it when that picture is finally developed.
He was ready to smash a flower pot over Scott's fucking head.
Yeah.
You think he would have done that otherwise? If he wasn't a KGB agent?
Maybe that moment, but he still would have led that slow speed chase through Washington. He would have done that exact same thing. I mean, I think he would have reacted the same way if he had no way out, Gene. He's got no way out.
He's got no way out.
He's going to go to jail. But as this movie's going, I was struck by how similar Gene Hackman and Kevin Spacey are. And I know it's a hot take, but I think you can reverse most of their roles. Now, there's an age difference between the two, and a lot of the movies we've done, Gene Hackman's older, but I think they are comparable actors. That Hackman's won 2 Academy Awards for Best Actor, French Connection, Unforgiven, nominated for 7 more. Spacey's won 2 Academy Awards, American Beauty, Usual Suspects. You have Bryce and Frank Underwood. They're the same people, same character, and I think they're both played, I think, both fairly well. Both of these guys have played Lex Luthor. I got to ask you, Gene, am I off base by saying that I think these two guys could be interchangeable in a lot of their roles?
Well, you said 2 things there. One of them was comparable. The other one was interchangeable. Comparable, yes. Interchangeable, I don't think so. Hackman is a bit more versatile. I think Hackman can do everything Spacey can. I don't think Spacey can do everything that Hackman can. Kevin Spacey can never replace Gene Hackman in the Royal Tenenbaums or Behind Enemy Lines or The Replacements, right? Basically, if he's playing a good guy or kind of an ambiguous guy or a person with a lot of heart, Kevin Spacey always has just a little bit of slime to his roles. And Hackman, he's a bit of a different flavor. He's like a sudden ferocity, right? That just kind of pops up out of nowhere. He's scary, but you can't really figure out why. I think they're slightly different, but yes, 99% of the time, these guys could play each other's roles easily.
Yeah, if you go back and look, I think most of Hackman's roles, he's the guy in charge.
Yes.
He's smarter than everyone else. And Spacey tends to go for the odd, for, the killer in Seven, for Verbal Kinter. He's the one who kind of hides, whereas Hackman's out there. But I think both their Luthers were pretty good, and I really like Hackman, even though he tends to play similar roles a lot of times.
I agree, and no matter what we give wipe score wise, I should point out that Costner and Hackman were both very, very good in this movie. Any flaws that happen is more from a production standpoint, I think.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, now is the time we give our Shat score for No Way Out. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get out of respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's when you're banging your boss's mistress, going on boat trips. 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a movie. It's when you don't get the girl, you lose your job, and you lose a friend who shot himself in the head. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for No Way Out?
I'm trying in my head to compare this to other films that were similar in this genre, the action, the espionage. I think the biggest problem I have with it is the pacing. Is it's uneven, it's not tense throughout, there's no build up to an ultimate conflict. I think I got to go 3.25 wipes. I would not watch it again. I thought the beginning was super slow. The twist reveal at the end wasn't that big. Good performances by Costner and Hackman, but overall, it doesn't make sense. The ticking clock, too short. The second half of the film, I think, is good. I think that's probably a 1 wipe, 1.5 wipe. It's tense. There's action. But for me, I think it's worse than average. I would rather watch the other Tom Clancy stuff, Clear and Present Danger, Hunt for Red October, which this could have been a prequel. The Phantom Sub, imagine in a world where this is Tom Clancy, and this is the prequel to Hunt for Red October. The Phantom Sub turns out to be that, but it's not that good. I think it's 3.25 wipes.
Okay, 3.25 wipes from Big D. Yeah, I'm pretty close there, Big D. I think it was a little bit better. I would say this is an average film, right? So this is falling in the same rough zone as I would say A Few Good Men. For me, I think I gave A Few Good Men 2.25. I'm going to go a little bit lower than that. I don't think this is quite that good. So I would say 2.5 wipes. One actor that we did not call out is Will Patton, the guy that plays Scott Pritchard. He is a maniac in this movie. He's absolutely fantastic. Really, really loved his performance. But yeah, overall, I think that it just kind of suffers from, it's a single note, sort of a suspense there. There were just too many ways out in No Way Out for me to buy in completely. So I'm going to go with 2.5 wipes. So 2.5 wipes for me and 3.25 wipes from Big D. That gives us an average wipe score of 2.875 wipes for No Way Out.
So, Gene, with that score, that now ties this in the 207 spot with Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Nightmare Before Christmas, Air Force One, Escape to Victory, Maximum Overdrive, Transformer the Movie, and Jumanji.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I like it. Even with 2 people, the system works.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Josh. I hope we did your movie justice. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, sexual deviant Frank inadvertently opens a portal to hell when he tinkers with a box he bought while abroad. The act unleashes gruesome beings called Cenobites who tear Frank's body apart. When Frank's brother and his wife Julia move into Frank's old house, they accidentally bring what is left of Frank back to life. Frank then convinces Julia, his one-time lover, to lure men back to the house so he can use their blood to reconstruct himself. Commissioned by Jason B., released in 1987, and I'm going to bare my soul here. I'm embarrassed to say, as a fan of horror, I was never able to watch this as a kid because it terrified me.
Did you watch this as an adult?
Did not.
Me neither.
It troubles me. There's something unnerving about it.
Wow. We're both virgins to this film. Exciting.
Like Freddy Krueger is somewhat comical. Jason Voorhees is comical. He's lumbering. He always comes up behind you even though he's walking. The main character in this, you just look at him. The character design, legendary.
Yeah.
It just makes me uneasy.
Well, it's because it's designed to strike fear in the hearts of sexual deviants.
It worked.
Super exciting. Jason, thank you so much for the commission. Thank you, Josh, for commissioning No Way Out. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, the birthday boy, Big D, Dick Ebert, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next week for the following movie.
have seen the future of horror. His name is Clive Barker. Beyond any terror you have imagined. A nightmare. No. Unlike anything you have witnessed, is born. Because within these walls, the unholy is unleashed. A film by Clive Barker. We'll tear your soul apart.